Step-uncle dumped his twin boys at my apartment every night for 3 weeks using fake emergencies as excuses, but when I called his wife to verify his stories about her sick mom, I discovered he was cheating and now everyone blames me for ruining his marriage. I need to get this off my chest because my whole family is now at war and apparently it's all my fault. I'm Paula, 28F, and I work as a freelance graphic designer from my apartment. I've lived alone since I graduated college 6 years ago and I really value my independence and quiet time at home. My mom remarried when I was 19 to a man named Robert, 52M. Robert has a brother named Marv, 44M, who lives about 3 hours away with his wife Linda, 41F, and their twin boys Jake and Sam, both 7. I've only met Marv maybe 5 times at family gatherings over the past 9 years. We're polite to each other but we're not close. He's technically my step-uncle but honestly he feels more like a distant relative I see at weddings. About 2 months ago, Marv got transferred to my city for a 6-month project with his company. Linda couldn't move with him right away because she had to finish out the school year at her teaching job and didn't want to disrupt the boys' education. So Marv moved into a furnished apartment by himself while his family stayed behind. The plan was for Linda and the boys to join him after school ended in May. But then Linda's mother got diagnosed with breast cancer and started chemotherapy. Linda decided to spend the summer helping her mom instead of moving here. This meant Marv would be alone in the city for his entire 6-month assignment. My mom asked me to help Marv get settled since I knew the area well. I took him grocery shopping, showed him the best coffee shops, and gave him restaurant recommendations. He seemed grateful for the help and I was happy to do it. Family should help family, right? 3 weeks ago, Linda drove down with the boys for a long weekend visit. Marv asked if I wanted to meet them at a local park on Saturday. I went and spent about 2 hours with them. The boys were energetic and loud like most 7-year-olds. They kept asking me to push them on swings and play tag. Linda mostly sat on a bench scrolling her phone while Marv tried to manage both kids. After that weekend, Linda went back home with the boys. But something changed with Marv. He started texting me more often asking about kid-friendly activities in the area. He wanted recommendations for playgrounds, museums, and restaurants that were good for children. I found this odd since he was living alone, but I figured maybe he was planning for future visits. Then last Monday evening around 6 p.m., Marv showed up at my apartment with both boys. He said Linda had driven down unexpectedly because her mom had a doctor's appointment the next day and Linda wanted to be there. He claimed he had an important client presentation to prepare for and asked if I could watch Jake and Sam for just a couple hours. I was confused about why Linda couldn't watch her own kids, but Marv explained that she was exhausted from dealing with her mom's illness and needed to rest. The boys were already in my living room playing with some toys Marv had brought. I didn't want to seem uncooperative, so I agreed to help out. Marv left and came back exactly 2 hours later. The boys had been well behaved. They watched cartoons on my laptop and ate the goldfish crackers Marv had packed for them. When he picked them up, he thanked me multiple times and said it was just a one-time thing. But it wasn't one time. Tuesday evening at 6 p.m., Marv showed up again with the boys. This time he said Linda had another doctor's appointment and he had urgent work emails to handle. Again, I agreed to watch them for 2 hours. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday followed the same pattern. Marv would arrive at exactly 6 p.m. with Jake and Sam, give me some excuse about Linda being busy or him having work to do, and pick them up at 8 p.m. The boys started bringing more toys and seemed comfortable in my apartment. They would immediately turn on the TV and spread their stuff all over my coffee table. I started to feel like I was being taken advantage of, but I didn't know how to address it without seeming mean. Plus, Marv was always polite and grateful when he picked them up. He would thank me and sometimes bring me coffee or pastries the next morning as a gesture of appreciation. By Friday, I decided I needed to set some boundaries. When Marv came to pick up the boys, I told him I couldn't do this every single day. I explained that I had my own work deadlines and evening routines. He apologized and said he understood completely. He promised it was just a temporary situation while Linda dealt with her mom's health issues. The weekend was peaceful. No unexpected visits from Marv and the boys. I caught up on work and did laundry. I thought maybe my conversation with Marv had worked. But Monday evening at 6 p.m., there was Marv at my door again with Jake and Sam. This time his excuse was that Linda had decided to stay an extra week with her mom because the chemotherapy was making her really sick. He said he had a crucial deadline at work and really needed my help one more time. I wanted to say no, but the boys were already walking into my apartment like it was routine. Marv left before I could protest. I spent another 2 hours supervising cartoons and snack time. Tuesday and Wednesday repeated the same pattern. I was getting irritated but didn't know how to handle the situation. Marv was family, the boys weren't badly behaved, and it was only 2 hours each day. But it was disrupting my entire evening routine and I felt like I couldn't plan anything after 6 p.m. On Wednesday when Marv picked up the boys, I was more direct. I told him this arrangement wasn't working for me long term and he needed to find alternative childcare. He said he understood and was already looking into day camps and babysitters. He promised this week would be the last time he needed my help. Thursday evening, Marv arrived as usual. But this time when he dropped off the boys, Jake mentioned something that confused me. He said his mom wasn't visiting grandma anymore and was back home. When I asked him about it, he said his mom had been home for several days and was cooking dinner for them every night. This made no sense based on what Marv had been telling me. If Linda was home, why was Marv still bringing the boys to my apartment every evening? I decided not to ask the boys more questions since they were just kids, but I made a mental note to clarify with Marv when he returned. When Marv came back at 8 p.m., I asked him about what Jake had said. Marv looked uncomfortable and said Jake was confused about the timeline. He insisted Linda was still dealing with her mom's health issues and staying there most evenings. But his explanation didn't sound convincing. Friday evening, I decided I needed to get to the bottom of the situation. When Marv arrived with the boys, I asked him directly why he couldn't stay home with them if Linda was back from her mom's house. He got defensive and said I was misunderstanding the situation. He claimed Linda was going back and forth between their house and her mom's, so her schedule was unpredictable. But something about his demeanor made me suspicious. He avoided eye contact and seemed nervous. The boys also seemed confused when I asked them where their mom was. Sam said she was at home making spaghetti for dinner, while Jake said she was at grandma's house. Their stories didn't match. After Marv left that night, I decided I couldn't continue this arrangement. Whether Linda was at home or not, I felt like Marv was being dishonest with me. I also realized I had been doing free childcare for almost 3 weeks without ever agreeing to be a regular babysitter. On Saturday, I planned to have a serious conversation with Marv about ending this arrangement. I was going to tell him I needed advance notice if he wanted my help and that I couldn't commit to daily babysitting. But Saturday evening, Marv never showed up. I waited until 6:30 p.m. and then texted him asking if everything was okay. He replied that Linda had come back early and they were having a family night together. I was relieved to finally have an evening to myself. Sunday was quiet too. No Marv, no boys, no last-minute babysitting requests. I started to think maybe the situation had resolved itself naturally. But Monday evening at 6 p.m., Marv was back at my door with Jake and Sam. This time he looked stressed and rushed. He said Linda had gone back to her mom's because there had been a medical emergency over the weekend. He practically pushed the boys into my apartment and said he would be back in 2 hours. I was frustrated but didn't want to cause a scene in front of the children. After Marv left, I decided I needed to get some clarity on this situation. The boys' stories about where their mom was kept changing, and Marv's explanations weren't adding up. I found Linda's phone number in my mom's contact list and decided to call her directly. I figured if there really was a family medical emergency, Linda would confirm it and I would feel better about helping out. If there wasn't an emergency, then I would know Marv had been lying to me. Linda answered on the second ring. I introduced myself and explained that Marv had been dropping the boys off at my apartment every evening for the past 3 weeks. I said I was calling to check on her mom's health and see if there was anything I could do to help during this difficult time. There was a long silence on the phone. Then Linda asked me to repeat what I had just said. When I explained again about the daily babysitting arrangement, Linda's voice changed completely. She said her mother's chemotherapy had ended 2 weeks ago and she had been home with the boys every evening since then. Linda asked me specific questions about what times Marv had been dropping off the boys and what reasons he had given me. When I told her about his claims regarding work emergencies and her being at her mom's house, Linda became very quiet. She thanked me for calling and said she would pick up the boys immediately. She arrived at my apartment 20 minutes later. The boys seemed confused about why their mom was there, but they gathered their toys and left with her. Linda didn't say much to me except to thank me for watching them. After they left, I tried calling Marv to let him know Linda had picked up the boys early. His phone went straight to voicemail. I texted him the same information and waited for him to respond. Marv never replied to my text or returned my call that evening. The next morning, my mom called me sounding upset. She said Marv and Linda were having marital problems and somehow I was involved. When I asked what she meant, she told me to call Marv and work things out because the whole family was talking about it. I tried calling Marv again but his phone was still going to voicemail. I didn't understand how my conversation with Linda had created marital problems. All I had done was call to check on her mom's health and clarify the babysitting situation. Update 1: The situation has gotten much worse and now my whole family is involved. I thought people might want to know what happened after my original post. The day after I called Linda, Marv finally called me back. He was angry and accused me of interfering in his marriage. He said Linda was furious with him and demanding explanations he couldn't give. When I asked him why he couldn't just tell her the truth about where he had been going every evening, he hung up on me. Later that same day, my mom called and said I needed to apologize to Marv immediately. She explained that Linda had confronted Marv about the babysitting arrangement and discovered he had been lying to her for weeks. Linda had thought Marv was working late every evening and was impressed by his dedication to his job. Finding out he had been dropping the boys off at my apartment made her question what else he might be lying about. My mom said Marv's marriage was in trouble because Linda no longer trusted him. She blamed me for creating this problem by calling Linda instead of talking to Marv first. I tried to explain that Marv had been lying to both Linda and me, but my mom said I should have minded my own business. Robert, my stepdad, also called me. He was upset because Marv was his brother and the family was taking sides. Robert said I had caused unnecessary drama by getting involved in Marv and Linda's relationship. He asked me to call Linda and explain that the babysitting arrangement was no big deal so she would stop being angry with Marv. I refused to do this because I didn't think Marv's lies were my responsibility to cover up. This made Robert even more upset. He said I was being stubborn and selfish. He told me that family members should protect each other, not cause problems for each other. The next few days were tense. Marv stopped responding to my calls and texts completely. My mom kept pressuring me to apologize and smooth things over with Linda. Robert was giving me the cold shoulder and making comments about how some people don't understand family loyalty. Then Linda called me directly. She said she needed to ask me some questions about the babysitting arrangement. She wanted to know specific details about what Marv had told me each day and whether I had noticed anything unusual about his behavior. I answered her questions honestly. I told her about Marv's various excuses for why he needed childcare and how the boys had mentioned that she was actually home during many of the evenings he had claimed she was at her mom's house. Linda listened without saying much. Linda then asked me if I had any idea where Marv might have been going during those 2 hours each evening if he wasn't at work and wasn't dealing with a family emergency. I told her I had assumed he was telling the truth about work deadlines and her mom's health issues. I said I never questioned his explanations until the boys mentioned she was home. After that conversation, things escalated quickly. My mom called me the next morning and said Linda had hired a private investigator to find out where Marv had been spending his evenings. She said the whole family was embarrassed by the situation and it was my fault for creating suspicion in Linda's mind. I pointed out that Marv had been the one lying to both his wife and me. I said if he had been honest about where he was going, none of this would have happened. My mom said that wasn't the point. She said family members should handle problems privately instead of involving outsiders. But Linda wasn't an outsider. She was Marv's wife and the mother of the children I had been babysitting. I felt like she had a right to know what her husband had been telling me. My mom disagreed and said I should have trusted Marv to handle his own marriage. The private investigator worked quickly. Within a week, Linda had found out where Marv had been going every evening. My mom called me with the results, and I was shocked by what she told me. Marv had been visiting a woman named Jessica, 35F, who lived about 20 minutes from my apartment. The investigator had photos of Marv entering and leaving Jessica's house during the exact times he was supposed to be picking up his boys from my place. The photo showed Marv staying at Jessica's house for about an hour and a half each evening. Linda confronted Marv with the evidence. According to my mom, Marv initially denied having an affair and claimed Jessica was just a friend from work. But when Linda pressed him for details, his story fell apart. Jessica didn't work at Marv's company and Linda had never heard him mention her before. Marv finally admitted he had been seeing Jessica for about 2 months. The affair had started shortly after he moved to the city for his work assignment. He said it was just physical and didn't mean anything, but Linda didn't care about his excuses. Linda packed up the boys and drove back to their hometown the same day. She filed for legal separation and told Marv she wanted a divorce. Marv begged her to reconsider and promised to end things with Jessica, but Linda refused to discuss reconciliation. My mom was devastated by this news. She said the family was being torn apart because of my phone call to Linda. She argued that if I had stayed out of their business, Linda never would have discovered the affair and their marriage might have survived. I disagreed with this reasoning. Marv had been lying to both Linda and me for weeks. His affair was the real problem, not my phone call. But my mom couldn't see it that way. She kept saying I had destroyed Marv's family by being nosy and interfering. Robert was even more angry with me than my mom was. He called me selfish and said I had ruined his brother's life over something as minor as babysitting. He said real family members would have kept their mouths shut and let Marv work through his problems privately. The worst part was that Marv started telling people I had deliberately exposed his affair because I was angry about the babysitting. He claimed I had called Linda specifically to cause trouble in his marriage. This wasn't true, but some family members believed his version of events. My mom's sister took Marv's side and said I should have minded my own business. Robert's parents also blamed me for the divorce. They said I was too young to understand how marriages work and had interfered in something that wasn't my concern. Only my dad supported me. He said Marv had brought this situation on himself by lying and cheating. He pointed out that I had only called Linda to clarify the babysitting arrangement and had no way of knowing about the affair. But my dad lived in another state and wasn't around to defend me to the rest of the family. Marv moved back to his hometown after Linda filed for divorce. His work assignment got cut short because of all the personal drama. Linda refused to let him see the boys unsupervised and demanded supervised visitation through the court system. The divorce proceedings started immediately. Linda was asking for full custody of the boys and spousal support. Marv hired a lawyer and was fighting both requests. The legal fees were expensive and Marv had to move in with Robert temporarily because he couldn't afford his own place. My mom kept pressuring me to call Linda and testify on Marv's behalf. She wanted me to tell the court that Marv was a good father and that the babysitting arrangement had been convenient for everyone involved. She said this might help Marv get better custody terms. I refused to get involved in their divorce proceedings. I told my mom that Marv had lied to me for weeks and used me as free childcare under false pretenses. I wasn't willing to vouch for his character in court. This refusal made my mom furious. She said I was being vindictive and holding a grudge over something minor. She accused me of wanting to punish Marv for the babysitting situation by refusing to help him with his custody case. Robert stopped speaking to me entirely. When I saw him at a family gathering last weekend, he ignored me completely. My mom was cold and distant. Several other family members made comments about how I had caused unnecessary drama and hurt innocent children by breaking up their parents' marriage. I left the family gathering early because the atmosphere was so uncomfortable. Multiple people had made it clear they blamed me for Marv's divorce and thought I should have handled the situation differently. Update 2: I need to share what happened because the situation took another turn that I never saw coming. Some of you might remember my original post about my step-uncle using me for free childcare and how calling his wife accidentally exposed his affair. Last week, Marv showed up at my apartment unannounced. He looked terrible. He had lost weight and his clothes were wrinkled like he had been sleeping in them. When I opened the door, he asked if he could come in because he needed to talk to me about something important. I was hesitant to let him in given how angry he had been with me, but he seemed desperate. He sat on my couch and put his head in his hands. Then he started talking about his divorce and how Linda was demanding a huge settlement because she believed his affair with Jessica was more serious than it actually was. Marv said his lawyer had advised him to get character witnesses who could testify that he was a good father and that his relationship with Jessica was just a temporary mistake. He asked if I would be willing to write a letter to the court explaining that he had been a responsible parent during the babysitting arrangement and that I had never seen him behave inappropriately. I told Marv I wasn't comfortable getting involved in his divorce case. I reminded him that he had lied to me for weeks and used me as unpaid childcare under false pretenses. I said I didn't think I could honestly recommend his character to a judge. Marv became upset and said I was the reason his marriage had fallen apart in the first place. He claimed that if I hadn't called Linda, she never would have discovered the affair and they might have worked through their problems privately. He said I owed him this favor because my interference had ruined his life. I pointed out that his affair had ruined his marriage, not my phone call. I said I had only called Linda to clarify the babysitting situation and had no way of knowing he was cheating. Marv insisted that wasn't the point. He said family members should protect each other and I had failed to do that. Then Marv said something that confused me. He mentioned that there were other family secrets that could come out during the divorce proceedings and that Linda's lawyer was asking a lot of questions about our family history. He said some information might surface that would be embarrassing for everyone, not just him. When I asked what he meant by family secrets, Marv became evasive. He said there were things about our family that I didn't understand and that Linda's lawyer was digging into areas that should remain private. He wouldn't give me specific details but kept hinting that the divorce investigation might reveal information that would upset other family members. I didn't understand what Marv was talking about, but his behavior was making me uncomfortable. He seemed paranoid and kept looking around my apartment like he expected someone to be listening to our conversation. When I asked him directly what family secrets he was worried about, he said I should ask my mom if I really wanted to know. After Marv left, I called my mom and asked her about his comments regarding family secrets. At first, she said she didn't know what he was talking about. But when I pressed her for details, she became defensive and said Marv was probably just stressed about the divorce and not thinking clearly. But something about my mom's tone made me think she was hiding something. She kept changing the subject when I asked about Marv's concerns regarding the family history investigation. Finally, I told her I was going to call Linda directly and ask what her lawyer had discovered. This threat made my mom panic. She told me not to contact Linda under any circumstances. She said there were some old family issues that didn't concern me and that I should stay out of the divorce proceedings completely. When I asked what kind of old family issues, my mom said it wasn't my business and hung up on me. I decided to call Linda anyway. I figured if Marv was worried about family secrets coming out, I had a right to know what they were since I was apparently involved somehow. Linda answered the phone and seemed surprised to hear from me. I asked Linda if her divorce lawyer had found anything unusual during their investigation into Marv's background. Linda was quiet for a moment, then asked me if I knew about my mom's relationship with Robert before they got married. This question confused me because my mom and Robert had met through mutual friends after my parents divorced. They dated for about a year before getting married when I was 19. I told Linda this timeline, and she asked me if I was sure about those details. Linda then told me that her lawyer had discovered something interesting while investigating Marv's financial records. During the asset investigation, they had found evidence that Robert had been sending money to my mom for several years before my parents officially divorced. The financial records showed regular payments from Robert to my mom starting when I was 15 years old. These payments continued through my parents' divorce and stopped only after my mom and Robert got married. Linda's lawyer thought this was suspicious and had investigated further. The investigation revealed that my mom and Robert had been having an affair for at least 4 years before my parents divorced. The money transfers were Robert supporting my mom financially while she was still married to my dad. The lawyer had bank records and other documentation proving the affair had been going on much longer than anyone in the family knew. Linda said her lawyer believed this information was relevant to Marv's case because it showed a pattern of deception and infidelity in the family. The lawyer planned to use this evidence to argue that Marv had learned his cheating behavior from watching Robert and my mom's relationship. I was shocked by this revelation. My parents' divorce had been presented to me as a mutual decision based on growing apart over the years. I had never suspected that my mom was having an affair with Robert. The timeline I had been told about their relationship was completely false. When I asked Linda how she had discovered this information, she explained that the financial investigation had been very thorough. Her lawyer had looked into all family financial connections to make sure Marv wasn't hiding assets. The pattern of payments from Robert to my mom had raised red flags and prompted further investigation. Linda also told me that Marv had been aware of the affair between my mom and Robert. According to the evidence her lawyer had found, Marv had helped Robert hide the financial support he was providing to my mom. This was why Marv was so worried about the family secrets coming out during the divorce proceedings. After talking to Linda, I confronted my mom directly about the affair. At first, she denied everything and said Linda's lawyer was making false accusations to help with the divorce case. But when I told her about the specific financial evidence, my mom broke down and admitted the truth. My mom confessed that she and Robert had started their relationship while she was still married to my dad. She said they had fallen in love and Robert had helped support us financially during the difficult last years of her marriage. She claimed they had wanted to be together but waited until after the divorce to make their relationship public to avoid hurting me. I asked my mom why she had lied to me about the timeline of their relationship. She said she was ashamed of having an affair and wanted to protect me from knowing the truth about how her marriage to my dad had really ended. She said she thought it would be easier for me to accept Robert as my stepfather if I believed they had met after the divorce. My mom also admitted that Marv had known about the affair from the beginning. Robert had confided in his brother and asked for advice about the situation. Marv had encouraged Robert to pursue the relationship with my mom and had even helped them meet secretly during the affair. This revelation explained why Marv had been so confident that I would help him with his divorce case. He assumed that family loyalty would prevent me from doing anything that might expose the affair between my mom and Robert. He thought I would prioritize protecting the family secret over holding him accountable for his lies. But Marv had miscalculated. Learning about my mom and Robert's affair didn't make me more sympathetic to his situation. Instead, it made me realize that the whole family had been built on lies and deception. I felt manipulated and betrayed by everyone involved. I told my mom I needed time to process this information and didn't want to talk to her for a while. She begged me not to cut her out of my life and promised to answer any questions I had about the situation. But I couldn't handle any more family drama or secrets. I also decided not to help Marv with his divorce case. I sent him a text message explaining that I wouldn't be providing a character reference or testifying on his behalf. I said I wanted to stay completely out of his legal proceedings and didn't want any further contact with him. Marv responded with several angry messages accusing me of destroying the family and being selfish. He said I was punishing innocent people for mistakes that had happened years ago. I blocked his number and haven't heard from him since. My relationship with my mom and Robert is essentially over. I can't look at them the same way knowing they built their marriage on lies and infidelity. Robert has tried calling me a few times, but I don't answer his calls. My mom has sent several text messages apologizing and asking me to give her a chance to explain, but I'm not ready for that conversation. The only person in my family who has been supportive is my dad. When I told him about discovering the affair, he said he had suspected something was going on but never had proof. He said he was sorry I had to find out this way and offered to help me work through my feelings about the situation. Marv's divorce is still ongoing, but I'm not involved in any way. Linda's lawyer did use the information about my mom and Robert's affair as evidence of a family pattern of deception, which apparently strengthened their case for a larger settlement. I've been thinking about moving to a different city to get away from all the family drama. The babysitting situation that started this whole mess seems minor compared to the decades of lies I've discovered. I need space to figure out how to move forward without the toxic family relationships that have been built on deception.